James Latta was a Scots-Irish immigrant who came to the United States in 1785. Before settling in North Carolina, he was a traveling merchant going up and down the Great Wagon Road from Philadelphia to this region of the Carolinas. He made a nice living as a merchant and started buying land, then built his house on the land in 1799.
John Davidson was the founder of what would become Rural Hill. John was born around 1735 in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. In 1751, John's father passed away unexpectedly. At that time, John traveled down the Great Wagon Road and with his mother and sister, settling in North Carolina and training to become a blacksmith.
In 1761, 19-year-old Violet Wilson married John Davidson. In 1765, John purchased 250 acres of land from his father-in-law. John and Violet and their two daughters would soon move into a 2-room log cabin that John would built on the property. John would call that cabin his rural retreat. John began farming operations immediately, initially to grow food for his family and later to sell for profit.
John Davidson was quickly drawn to political service, serving as representative of North Carolina in the Colonial Assembly and a Justice of the Peace for Mecklenburg County. John will be listed among the signers of the May 20th, 1775 Mecklenburg County of Declaration of Independence and became the major of the Mecklenburg militia during the Revolutionary War. In 1788, after raising all 10 of his children in the rural retreat cabin, Major John set out to build a grand home atop a hill overlooking the Catawba River, known as Rural Hill. Rural Hill went on to house additional generations of the Davidson family. Major John's son John, Jackie Davidson, would live there from 1823 until 1837. Adam Brevard, Major John's grandson, would live in the home from 1837 until 1886, when the manor burned, leaving behind only portions of the foundation and porch columns, a well house, ash house, and log kitchen house. It is the journals and notes from Adam Brevard which paint a vivid picture of life on the Rural Hill plantation, which at one time consisted of over 1,982 acres of land. Historic Rural Hill now operates as a non-profit historic site, working farm, site for festivals and events, and a center for education.
The revolution had been going on for 5 years, with each side winning some battles and losing others. That's when the British decided to try for the second time their southern strategy. They believed in reliable reports of the interior counties, the backcountry of the southern colonies, was filled with men who were fiercely loyal to the British crown. So the British sailed an army of loyalist Americans out of New York Harbor in Christmas of 1779. And in the spring of 1780, they captured Charlestown. Lord General Cornwallis marched north from Charlestown with his army of loyalists, intending to march north and attack George Washington from the south. As they got to the center of South Carolina, after having secured a surrender of the Southern Department of the Continental Army in Charlottetown, they ran into a reconstituted Southern Department of the Continental Army under the command of Horatio Gates. They defeated them at the Battle of Camden, and at that point there was no army standing between Cornwallis and his plans to march north into North Carolina and on to attack George Washington. There was only militia. And in the fall of 1780, on September 26th, Cornwallis sent his men into Charlotte. He quickly realized he had selected the wrong place. Bannister Tarleton noted that it was evident that the counties of Mecklenburg and Rowan were more hostile to England than any other in America. Major George Hanger and his dragoons rode into Charlotte from the south along Tryon Street towards the courthouse, which stood on 10-foot pillars. General William Lee Davidson ordered Major William Davie to defend Charlottetown, so the militia lined themselves along Tryon Street behind the brick wall, ready to defend themselves and their city. That is what you see happening in the Battle of Charlotte. They did not stop but retreated and withdrew in orderly fashion, inflicting pain on the dragoons. As Cornwallis prepared to leave Charlotte on October 12th, after a humiliating visit, he remarked, "Let's get out of here. This place is a hornet's nest of rebellion."
Hezekiah Alexander was born in 1728 to Joseph and Margaret Alexander in Maryland. When he was 12, he began his schooling at a Presbyterian school called Pencador Academy, just a few miles from his home. After finishing an apprenticeship in blacksmithing, he moved to Concochaig, Pennsylvania. Shortly after settling there, he married Mary Sample. He soon migrated to the Carolina colony in the 1760s. He was an elder at Cigar Creek Presbyterian Church and was greatly influenced by the sermons of Alexander Craighead, becoming an extremely influential patriot in Mecklenburg County during the American Revolution. He is probably most famous for his work in drafting the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence and the North Carolina Constitution and Bill of Rights. The house he built in 1774 is the only surviving house of a member of the 5th Provisional Congress and a drafter of the North Carolina Constitution and Bill of Rights.
On May 20th, 1775, the citizens of Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, became the first political entity in the American colonies to declare themselves free and independent from the King and Parliament of Great Britain. The Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence was signed by elected representatives in the county courthouse, a log building on brick pillars, which stood in the middle of an intersection of Trade and Tryon Streets. The declaration preceded the U.S. Declaration of Independence of July 4th, 1776 by more than a year. From September 26th to October 12th, 1780, the British Army was encamped in Charlotte. The encampment made a square centered around the courthouse at the intersection of Trade and Tryon Streets, about 300 yards across. This marker is the southern part of the encampment where Lieutenant Colonel Tarleton's infantry and cavalry, the Loyalist militia, and the camp followers were located. 4 cannons of the artillery were placed on a crossroads near the courthouse.
Here stood the house of Colonel Thomas Polk, the founder of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. By 1775, Thomas Polk was colonel of the Mecklenburg militia. He set out to call for his captains to send 2 delegates each to the convention on May 19, 1775. From that convention came the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. Polk's home was used by Lord Cornwallis as his headquarters when the British occupied Charlotte in the autumn of 1780. President George Washington visited Charlotte on May 28, 1791, and was entertained here.
Captain James Jack lived here and ran the tavern owned by his father Patrick Jack. When the Mecklenburg Declaration and the Mecklenburg Resolves were signed on May 20th and May 31st, 1775, Captain Jack volunteered to ride to Philadelphia and present them to the Continental Congress. Royal Governor Martin called these resolutions most treasonable, and Jack no doubt would have been hanged if caught on his ride. A bronze statue of Captain James Jack riding off to Philadelphia is located in the Trail of History in Little Sugar Creek Greenway.
Mecklenburg County is the scene of some of the most dramatic events of the Revolution in North Carolina, and the home of numerous heroes and heroines of the period. Charlotte, the county seat of Mecklenburg, and the largest city in the Carolinas, was a hotbed of activities during the Revolutionary War. When Lord Cornwallis triumphantly marched his redcoats into town in the early fall of 1780, in the wake of his overwhelming conquest of the Americans at Camden, South Carolina, he could sense that a total victory in the South was at hand. However, during his 3-week stay, the British commander found the city a most inhospitable place. It was literally and figuratively a hornet's nest. We hope that you enjoyed your tour of this hornet's nest of rebellion more than Cornwallis did, and thanks for riding with us.